So in this video, we're going to unpack further the effects of childhood trauma to help deepen our understanding of what happens when we go through it and what we need to heal from it. So the first point I want to start talking about is really something important, and that is the idea of disassociation. Okay, so what does that mean? Disassociating is something that people do as a self-protective mechanism. It's a way to protect ourselves. It's a way to survive. So imagine if someone is going through something really intense emotional pain, or really intense physical pain. What they'll need to do to survive from that, if they don't want to snap, is to somehow disconnect from themselves, somehow disconnect from that pain, so it's happening to them, but they're not experiencing the full blunt of it. They're not experiencing the full intensity of that. And if you think about that, that's really a smart thing to do. That's a survival strategy. Because if we're going through something so intense, our only option to protect ourselves and survive is to disconnect from ourselves in that way, to sort of go away from it to some degree, so we're not experiencing the pain as intensely. Now here's the point though. In the moment, that's what we need to do as a survival strategy. But there's such a large cost on that. We end up paying the price later in our life when we've disconnected from ourselves. And then we have to learn in our therapy and our healing how to reconnect to ourselves. Let me tell you some of the effects. Imagine someone who disconnected from themselves when they're going through that difficult period. Right now, they might have difficulty connecting to their emotions. They might have difficulty connecting to all their emotions, both positive and negative. Because when we shut off the valve, so to speak, when we shut off the system, we're just more numb. And it's harder to really feel that we're alive. We might just feel like we're going through life, but we're not fully alive. So you might say, what's needed? What can you do about it? So here's the answer. And the answer is that it requires a lot of patience and safety. But we want to start being able to come back to ourselves and be able to re-feel slowly and safely what wasn't possible to feel in the past. So let's say there was a lot of emotional pain or a lot of anger, a lot of hurt. In the safety of therapy, we want to be able to let our psyche and our consciousness become aware of some of that hurt that we went through and be able to express it, be able to feel it, or be able to mourn it, or be able to cry over it. And by doing that process, being able to reconnect now in a safe environment to what wasn't possible to be felt before, that's how we start healing the disassociation. So this is an important cornerstone and key part of healing. Let me share with you a second idea in this video, again along the lines of understanding the effects of childhood trauma. The second point is that how much our nervous system gets thrown off from childhood trauma. Let me explain. Meaning, after childhood trauma, one might have so much more challenge with dealing with stress, with dealing with anxiety, with dealing with triggers, and they just somehow get overwhelmed so quickly and somehow just feel like they can't cope or need to do something destructive, like maybe drugs or some addiction to be able to manage. And they might ask themselves, why is it so hard for me to regulate myself? Why is it so hard for me to, so to speak, live in the world like everyone else? And the answer is because oftentimes they didn't get the right regulation as a child. Let me explain. Imagine when a child's overwhelmed, so their nervous system gets a spike. And then in that moment, and we touched on this a little bit in the first video, but imagine when they're overwhelmed or they're crying or they're scared, if a parent or caregiver came and met them where they're at. So they were scared, and instead of being ignored or shamed, they were said, oh wow, you're scared, let me help soothe you, let me help calm you. If that was done, then that builds actually a resiliency and a strength into their nervous system. So then they calm down, And then the next time they get scared, their body's actually a little stronger to do it because they already got some help. And particularly though, we know the science shows, the really cutting edge science shows, that children and babies need someone outside of themselves to help them regulate. So if a baby's crying, they need this caregiver or parent to come and soothe them and say, it's okay, you're safe. And then that teaches their system how to be able to ride those waves. So then when they're an adult, when they're feeling overwhelmed, they're able to soothe themselves. But if we didn't get that right soothing from the outside as a baby and as a child, then it's so hard. It's not like built into the system. And then as we get stressed as an adult or going through emotional pain or triggers or stress as an adult, it so easily crashes us. So that can also give an understanding to maybe what you're going through and why you may be struggling so much more than others. It's because there wasn't the right attunement and so to speak, training for your nervous system. If your nervous system got the attunement it needed, and when it was scared and overwhelmed, it was soothed by someone outside of you, it would have got built in. In the coming videos, we're going to describe how to help now heal the nervous system and help it if you didn't get that in childhood. But I wanted to give you some of these ideas to understand some of the effects of childhood trauma, like disassociation and feeling emotionally dysregulated, and how that begins to give us a picture of what we need to heal. Okay, all the best, and I look forward to continuing with this video series.